What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be talking about the man himself, President Donald J. Trump, and a little bit about how he operates his finances, and more importantly, how each year he manages to pay very little or possibly even $0 in taxes. Now, what's that? The President of the United States doesn't pay taxes? That's right. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you exactly how Donald Trump slashes his tax bill each year to the country that he is now responsible for running, and how he legally works the IRS to minimize the amount he contributes to our nation on an annual basis. And just to be clear, we are talking about the tax liabilities from his private businesses, not his tax liabilities as the President of the United States. Before I get started, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave any video ideas you have in the comments. So, let's get into it. Donald Trump is a real estate magnate, hotel and casino mogul, and the current leader of our free world. But before he gave his life to politics and began running the country, in a very skeptical way I might add, he was an active investor and businessman who took many chances in business, saw lots of successes, and of course saw many failures, declaring bankruptcy over 4 times between 1991 and 2009. Possibly more than 4 times. The exact number is not super public, but some sources say he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy over 10 times during that 2-decade period. Now, whether you love him or hate him, and believe me, I live in California, so I know just how much people hate him, we can all learn a thing or two from him about the tax system and how we ourselves can potentially save some money on our next tax bill. You can either look at the title of this video and get pissed off that our president barely contributes any funds to our nation.
In the last debate, he has not paid a penny in federal income tax. And we were talking about immigrants a few minutes ago, Chris. You know, half of all immigrants, undocumented immigrants in our country, actually pay federal income tax. So we have undocumented immigrants in America who are paying more federal income tax than a billionaire. I find
so
that
let me just tell you
astonishing.
We're entitled, because of the laws that people like her pass, to take massive amounts of depreciation and other charges, and we do it. And all of her donors, just about all of them, I know Buffett took hundreds of millions of dollars, George Soros.
Or you can take a closer look with me and learn some of the various legal ways that Donald Trump and some of the other wealthy investors and business people in our country use to avoid paying much of the taxes that you would expect them to be paying. So what are these rich people doing differently than the rest of us, and why in the world would a rich person be allowed to pay $0 in taxes when the rest of us muggles are struggling to get by and still being forced to make that tax payment every single April? Well, they're taking advantage of the various loopholes in the tax system that are designed to help corporations and entities and incentivize them to spend more money and continue putting money back into the system and economy. The first thing that these people are doing, and what any smart business should do, is as soon as they start making any money, is file and register the business as a corporation or an LLC. There are quite a few different categories that you can file your business under when officially opening the company. You can set it up as an S corporation, a C corporation, or perhaps an LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Company, and there are various others. I'm not a tax expert, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on each of these entities, but basically they all offer certain tax incentives and protections to the business owner, and if you know how to work the system properly, all sorts of tax breaks and tax incentives. When you have a business entity set up, you are able to subtract all sorts of expenses from your overall income when filing your taxes. This works for big businesses as well as small businesses. I mean, you could be a one-man show or have up to 10,000 people into your company. Each business entity is able to write off certain expenses on their tax return. So as an example, if your business earns $100,000 over the course of the year, and you spend $30,000 on things that can be summed up as business expenses, which can include just about anything. I mean, this can include supplies, advertising expenses, client dinners and meetings, all sorts of things like this, then you can legally file taxes stating that your business's operating income for the year was $70,000, and you are taxed at the rate that anybody making $70,000 per year is, not the $100,000 that the business generated in revenue. This is all perfectly legal and put in place by the government in order to incentivize businesses to spend more money and keep money flowing into different parts of the economy. And this is one of the strategies that Donald and lots of other wealthy businessmen use in order to cut down their tax bill, oftentimes to the point where they literally don't have to pay anything because they spend so much on business expenses and other things that they can write off. The second thing to mention is that Trump is a big-time residential and commercial real estate investor, and he makes the bulk of his money from real estate. If you've seen any of the other videos from our channel, or perhaps other real estate videos from around the web, then you are probably aware that real estate offers all sorts of tax advantages, and property owners are constantly capitalizing on them. So any money that comes in the form of rental income, Trump is turning around and instantly looking for ways that he can reinvest that money so he doesn't have to give it to the government. He's doing things like making improvements to his properties in the form of renovations, in which all the expenses involved can be written off, including materials as well as labor costs, hiring more employees, and looking for new investments to make before he has to report that income on his tax return. Again, this is all perfectly legal, and this is what many real estate investors do in order to protect their money and shield their income from high taxes. We won't go into too much detail in this video as to all the ways that you can shield your income from taxes using real estate. That's for a whole other video on its own, but just keep in mind that real estate is one of the best ways that you can gain tax breaks, and there are quite a few other things you can do to save money. And because Trump was a full-time real estate investor and was constantly looking for new properties to acquire and add to his portfolio, he's been able to take advantage of some of the tax loopholes that come with buying and selling real estate. For instance, the government offers something called the 1031 exchange to real estate investors, which I will make a more extensive video later on and post to the channel, but for now I'm just going to go into it briefly. The way that this works is when a real estate investor owns a property and decides they want to sell that property to buy something else, they are able to transfer the money they make from the sale of the first property and put it into a bigger and more expensive property without having to pay any taxes on the sale that they made from that first property. Now, this is not the case with a normal property sale. Normally, when you sell a property and you make a profit from the equity gained and you cash out, you typically have to pay a percentage of the money you made from the sale of the property to the government in the form of capital gains taxes. Now, the amount you end up having to pay typically depends on the state and the region that you're in, the sheer size of the sale and the amount of profits made, as well as how long you own the property and actually held on to it. But for any sale that is not reinvested instantly, taxes must be paid. But with the 1031 exchange, investors are given a 90-day grace period to purchase a new property with the money that they made from the sale of that first property, in which case the taxes for the sale are actually waived because the investor is putting that money back into the marketplace and contributing to the economy in a big way. Of course, there are certain contingencies that must be met in order to avoid these taxes, and again, we will go over these in a later video, but all you need to know for now is that this is the strategy that Trump and many other real estate investors will use throughout their career in order to avoid paying large tax bills and grow their portfolio faster. Let me share a quick example so you know how this works. Let's say you buy a property for $300,000 and you put $60,000 down as the down payment. You wait 3 years and the property increases in value by $50,000, so now it's worth $350,000. At that 3-year point, you now have close to $15,000 paid down on the principal of your loan, $50,000 gained in equity on the property, and the original $60,000 that you put down towards your down payment because you were a good little buyer who listened to Dave Ramsey and saved up your 20% towards your down payment. You now have $125,000 in equity on the property, more than double the original $60,000 that you had saved up for that first property. Now let's say you find a more expensive property that you want to buy. With that $125,000, you'd probably qualify for a property somewhere in the $500,000 to $600,000 range. What you can do is sell that first property for the $350,000, take the $125,000 in equity money and put it down towards that $600,000 property that you want to buy without having to pay a dime in capital gains taxes if you do it all within that 3-month period. Essentially almost doubling your net worth overnight in the amount of rent you can collect from your properties each month. Does that make sense? This is the strategy that real estate investors like the Trump family use to quickly acquire larger properties and expand their portfolio without having to pay taxes each time they sell. And this is why real estate is one of the best places to not only earn passive income, but also protect and shield your money from Uncle Sam and high taxes. Obviously, this is not the same as not paying income taxes, but we already noted ways that Trump manages to get his income tax bill trimmed down tremendously by reinvesting extra profits directly back into his businesses and investments so that when tax time comes around, his businesses show high revenues, but equally high expenses. On paper, his business is essentially broke, making little to no profit. But the magic happens when you see that his businesses actually are profitable. He just takes all the profits he makes and immediately spends it on things that he thinks will help push his businesses forward, only showing enough profit on paper to essentially maybe provide for his living expenses and other basic needs. When I first learned about this process, it clicked in as to just how some real estate investors are able to very quickly acquire lots of units without having to use a ton of their earned income to keep buying places. And this is exactly how Donald Trump manages to get away with paying very little in taxes, and why so many have attacked him for it over his presidency. We don't actually know how much Donald pays in taxes, but he's been accused of paying 0% taxes, and that could very well be the case. But for those of you thinking he may be getting in trouble for this, or he's been doing something illegal in order to get out of his tax bill, you're actually incorrect. This is completely legal, and anybody who is getting into business or real estate needs to understand how this works and how they too can take advantage of these loopholes themselves. So that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found the content helpful, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button down below. It would really help me as I continue to grow my channel and expand my audience. And if you need me to clarify anything that I mentioned in this video, or you have any questions or comments whatsoever, go ahead and drop it in the comment sections down below. Also put any suggestions for video ideas down in the comments section down below, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.